So again, I'm Sylvia Bowling, a business analyst in the Office of Security Operations at Ginnie Mae, and the team would like to welcome you to this webinar on manual data entry in PDS. Just a few pointers before we begin. Feel free to log your questions in the Q&A box as we go through training. Typically, we'll take questions at the end of each section or when there is an appropriate moment. We would ask that you please do not post your questions to chat, as this content is not available to us after the call. And if we need to get back to you, we won't have that information. Also want to let you know that towards the end of today's training, a survey will be posted. Ginnie Mae uses your feedback to improve our content and delivery. So you're welcome to leave any thoughts you have for our consideration, and we really do appreciate your feedback. The team that is presenting today is Christy Christensen, Matt Tettelbach, and Debbie Bowles. Matt is a technical project manager for PDS from Deloitte, and Christy and Debbie Bowles are experts on RFS and providing issuer support for reporting from VDEV. Matt is also going to be supporting us today on the technology front. So if you have any technical Zoom questions, please reach out to him for help. Okay, I'm going to hand this over to Christy and Matt, who will lead you through the agenda and then on to the training. Thank you.
Thanks, Sylvia, and good afternoon, everyone. So for today's PDS training, for those of you who are on the previous PDS training, it's be the same content, but also going over the opportunity for additional question and answers throughout the session. So we're providing an overview of PDS. We're providing the PDS manual entry training. We're going over next steps and resources, as well as that question and answer session at the end of the training today. For PDS, at a high level, what we're hoping to achieve here with the PDS data collection is to go ahead and collect additional information in more granular detail at the loan level on defaulted loans in the Ginnie Mae portfolio, which provides Ginnie Mae the ability to with better analysis and visibility on the defaulted portfolio. As were previously stated and communicated multiple times, this is governed by APM 2406, which came out earlier this year, which is specifying that we're going to begin PDS reporting here in December, beginning in December using November 2024 report period data. So we're getting ready to go live with PDS. We'll see that module come available in My Ginnie Mae in the coming days. As we get ready to prepare for PDS over the next few days here, realize we have the holiday coming up as well. Reminding that we're expecting to see PDS reported starting in December. You have the option of submitting your file. All the testing organizations passed PDS file testing, so that was successful. Or also manually entering your information into the My Ginnie Mae site, as you'll see how to do so later today in the training. If you have not done so already, please make sure to review Appendix 622. To make sure you have the latest version of Appendix 622, please double check the effective date in the bottom corner. It should say December 1st, 2024 is the latest version that you should be looking off of and using for implementing PDS. Lastly, if you're using a service bureau or another vendor in support of your PDS solution, we encourage you to be in contact with that team to make sure that everything's in place for a smooth and successful implementation starting here on December 1st. In terms of where we're at in our PDS timeline here, again, thank you to all of our testing organizations. We worked with dozens of organizations supporting all of the single-family issuers, and every single organization successfully completed their file testing. If you're an issuer that's manually entering your data, you didn't participate in the testing, but that's what the training today and was provided previously will help cover to make sure everyone's prepared and successful for PDS. So we've completed the file testing. We're now here in November. We're getting ready to start December PDS reporting. We look in the green box here on the far right for PDS. That's going to begin in December, again, using November 2024 report period data. With that in mind, we want to go over a couple of key clarifications at the top of the call here to make sure everyone's receiving the same information and has the same understanding. The first item here is around when to start and when to stop reporting. The bullets that follow here are taken directly from Appendix 622. I'm going to the initial pages. The key piece to emphasize here is that these directions on when to start and stop take precedence over any of the reporting codes that are listed in Appendix 622. So if you see a code there, but the loans say already out of the pool or already been removed, you wouldn't need to report that code. So when to start reporting, you'd start reporting for a loan that's delinquent, as specified in Chapter 18. If the borrower is in bankruptcy, or the borrower is, whether or not the borrower is current on loan payments. The borrower is in forbearance, regardless if they are current or not on loan payments. And then you're also pursuing an alternative foreclosure. So the 4 conditions of when to start reporting that PDS information. Secondly, when to stop reporting. The loan is no longer delinquent, right? If the last installment paid date is current, you would not need to report. If that loan's been liquidated from the Ginnie Mae pool, does not need to be reported. You've completed an alternative foreclosure, and then the loan is reinstated. You can stop reporting. If the loan is no longer in forbearance and is now current, you can also stop reporting. And lastly, if the borrower is no longer in bankruptcy and the loan is current, you can also stop reporting PDS information at that time. So I wanted to emphasize that here. Again, this is taken directly from Appendix 622, so I encourage everyone to review that. Additionally, on the following slide here, for those of you who attended our training last week on the 20th, this was a lot of the question and answers that we had was around bankruptcy. So I know we've been in contact with individuals who followed up with questions. We'll want to make sure we're getting this information to everyone here on the call today to explain that there's flexibility in the reporting for this bankruptcy scenario. So for bankruptcy, right, per Appendix 622, what we just saw, if the loan is current, but the borrower is in bankruptcy, you want to report the bankruptcy code when it occurs. The second piece here, and where we've received a lot of questions, is that if the loan remains current, what to do and how to report. So the preference from Ginnie Mae is to report a 042, a no action code, each month that that loan remains current, but in bankruptcy. However, Ginnie Mae understands that was not clearly communicated in the current version of Appendix 622. So as such, the guidance we're providing to issuers and to our testing partners is that the following options are also acceptable for this scenario. If your solution's coded to report a bankruptcy code each month the loan is in bankruptcy, that will work. It won't trigger any exceptions. You can report that each month. Additionally, if your solution is coded, where right now you report the bankruptcy code when it occurs, you don't report anything else while that loan is current, that will also work. That will not trigger any exceptions for PDS. Lastly, we note here that Ginnie Mae does intend to update Appendix 622. This update would come in the coming months. The goal is to first get PDS in production, and then from there work to update at a later date that will provide additional clarity on this scenario. And thank you for your feedback to make sure that guidance is updated. Additionally, Ginnie Mae wants to make sure that issuers have ample notice to implement any of these updates to Appendix 622. So right now, if your solution is coded this way with one of these 3 scenarios, you're all set for December. And then in the future, we provide additional clarification, and then you have ample time to implement those changes. So hopefully that helps to answer a lot of the questions that we received previously. And we welcome any additional question and feedback as well later on the call today. With that in mind, I'd next like to pass the conversation to Debbie Bowles from our issuer support team to go through the PDS manual entry training.
Thank you, Matt, and good afternoon, everyone. If we could go to the next slide, please. For pool accounting payment default status module access, my Ginnie Mae function roles need to be the same role as your investor reporting team, which your internal org admin grants this access. For the PDS monthly certification, An RSA soft token will be needed. RSA token holders are required to be on the current 11702 form. To access PDS, you will log in to MGM, click Tools in the upper right corner, click on PDS under Applications. If your default team already has access to Pool Accounting Exception Feedback, the PAEF module in Ginnie Mae, then they will automatically have access to the PDS module when it becomes available in the tool menu before December 1st. Next slide, please. This is the PDS home screen. There are gray tabs for PDS activity, PDS exceptions, PDS download, issuer summary, and user guide. There is a downloadable user guide in each module of RFS. We will view these tabs over the next few slides. Next slide, please. When you click on PDS Activity tab, the PDS Activity screen displays. On slide 19, we'll discuss how to report PDS loan activity. Here's a sample of the PDS exception screen. This is where you would find any outstanding PDS exceptions for the reporting period. The PDS download screen has two different options. The FA list is the functional acknowledgement list, which will show all files that have been uploaded. Notice the accepted, rejected column at the end. If a file rejects, there will be an R listed in this column. You can then click on the file name link on the far left to open for the file reject reason. If an A is listed in this column, then the file accepted and loaded into RFS. The PDS download tab and the download option in the dark blue bar displays on the download exception screen. Details of this process will be on slide 25 and 26. The Issuer Summary tab shows the summary of the PDS activity and is where you will find the monthly certification link. Next screen, please. Here is the PDS monthly reporting certification screen. Details on how to complete will be on slide 29 and 30. Let's move on to how to use the screens that we've reviewed. To manually report PDS loan activity after logging into MGM, clicking Tools, and selecting the PDS module, click on the PDS Activity tab in the red box. These steps and screen prints are on slide 10. Enter the Ginnie Mae unique loan ID highlighted with the green box in the middle of the screen. The current reporting period will be populated in the report period box automatically. Only information for the current reporting period may be updated in RFS. The drop-down box will show the prior 17 months of data reported on the PDS loan level as view-only information. After entering the Ginnie Mae unique loan ID, Click the Go button, which is highlighted by the green box, to populate the issuer ID, pool type, unique loan ID, and loan type, which is the next row of information. Next screen, please. The issuer loan ID should populate. If it does not, please enter the issuer loan ID in the issuer loan ID field. Then select one of the available reason codes from the drop-down list. All available codes are listed in the Appendix 6-22 on pages 9 through 11. Next screen, please. Then select an action code from the drop-down list. Appendix 6-22, pages 11 through 17, list all of the available action codes with definitions. Enter the action code date. Click the Add button and click OK on the pop-up box. A maximum of 20 action codes and dates may be entered on one loan per reporting period in RFS. So all the action codes and dates are entered on the loan, then click the Save button. Action codes are listed in the grid. If you need to edit any of the action code dates, click the blue Edit link. Update the action code date, click the Update button, and then click OK on the pop-up box. Next, click the Save button and then OK on the pop-up box. If you need to edit an action code that is listed in the action code list, you will need to delete the entire PDS activity for the loan by clicking Delete PDS Activity button. Click OK on the pop-up box. You can then re-add the action code with the corrected information. Click the Add button, then the Save button. Next screen, please. To view the list of the outstanding exceptions, click the PDS Exceptions tab. This tab lists all outstanding PDS exceptions for the issuer number. To download the outstanding exceptions, click the PDS Download tab. Select Download in the dark blue bar. Select the file type Radio button and click the Download button that is highlighted in yellow. Once the exception download is completed, the Download Exception CSV file link will appear, which is in the red box. Follow the 4 steps to open the CSV file. Save this file for your records. Most issuers will save this file as Excel. This outstanding exception is a PDS 161 that says the issuer loan does not match RFS issuer reporting value. To view the loan with the PDS 161 exception, click on the PDS Activity tab, enter the unique loan ID, and click Go. The unique loan ID may be copied from column A of the exception download and pasted into this field. The exception from the CSV download will display at the top of the screen that is highlighted in yellow. The issuer loan ID field is highlighted in green in the middle of the screen. Update the loan number to match your internal loan number from your servicing system and click the Save button. This issuer loan number should match the exact internal loan number that is reported on the pool accounting single-family loan screen, which is field 6 on the RFS file from Appendix 6-19. After clicking the Save button, if the exception clears, the exception message will not be at the top of the screen. Next slide, please. To complete the PDS monthly certification, click the Issuer Summary tab and click the monthly certification link in the bottom right corner. Next slide, please. Click the box to the left of the legal certification and the fields highlighted in pink will populate. Enter your RFS Secure ID passcode and click the Save button. The PDS certification must be completed monthly between the 7th and 14th business days of the month. Next, great, thanks. PDS information may be manually reported in Ginnie Mae. Upload a PDS file via SFTP or by selecting File Upload under MGM Applications and select Payment Default Files from the drop-down menu. Appendix 6-22 has the full PDS file layout along with all PDS exceptions that could generate. The PDS reporting may begin after the issuer's monthly reporting cutoff. Issuers should verify with their investor reporting team that there are no RFS 204 missing loan exceptions prior to PDS monthly reporting. PDS reporting must reflect the state of the issuer's portfolio as of the issuer's reporting cutoff date for the RFS pool and loan data. Ginnie Mae allows issuers to pick their cutoff date from the 25th calendar day to the first business day of the following month. If you don't know your Ginnie Mae cutoff date, please check with your internal investor reporting team or your subservicer. PDS data must be submitted monthly by the 5th business day at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Deadline for critical and high exceptions is the 7th business day by 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Per Appendix 6-22, there is one critical exception, which is the PDS 204 exception, and 2 high exceptions, which are the PDS 160 and the PDS 161 exception. I will now turn it over to Matt.
Thanks, Debbie. Now that we've gone through and seen how to manually enter information in PDS, we next want to provide some next steps and resources for all the attendees on the call today. On the slide here, we see the next steps and resources detailed. So we're working towards the PDS Go Live here on December 1st, 2024, using that November reporting period data. There are a number of resources available to help assist you in implementing PDS. These include 2 modernization bulletins. Modernization Bulletin 50 provides information on some of the reporting codes in Appendix 622. Modernization Bulletin 54 provides an update on how to continue reporting supplemental forbearance file while PDS is in effect for the next 6 months to ensure disclosure reporting is not impacted. We provide a link to FAQs, provide high-level information on the PDS approach implementation. I'll link to the latest copy of Appendix 622, which is the specifications your PDS solution is aligned to, a copy of Appendix 2406 or APM 2406, excuse me, which specifies the go live date as well as the policy mandate for this data collection. Lastly, the QRCs, we just received confirmation from Ginnie Mae this morning that these will be published later today, that these will be available online as well. There's 2 QRCs that you'll see posted. Those include the process for certifying your monthly PDS submission, as well as a quick reference card for entering your PDS information. So 2 PDS QRCs are available. So a number of resources here to help support you in implementing and adopting PDS. With that in mind, we'll next go to our question and answer portion. I invite Sylvia to help facilitate this.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, Matt, Christine, Debbie, that was great. Appreciate your walking us through that information. We'll be loading a brief survey, which we hope that you'll participate in as we value your feedback. Matt, if you can go ahead, thank you. The survey should have appeared on your screen. And once you've responded to the questions, if you could please press the submit button in blue. You can minimize the survey, and then if you need to, you can re-navigate it to any time using the polls and quizzes button at the bottom of your screen. Just remember before you exit the call to please press the submit button. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to open it up for questions. If you advance to the next slide, I think, Matt. Yeah, there's a couple of ways to ask questions. If you've dialed in from your computer, you can just raise your hand. If you've dialed in from your phone, then you can press *9 to raise your hand, and then we'll take questions. When we take your question, you'll get an unmute button, and please press the unmute button and you'll be free to chat. And feel free to continue typing questions in the Q&A box. I see the team have been feverishly working to answer some of the questions that have already been logged. So why don't we, Matt, why don't we start with some raised hands? Are there any? And if not, we'll get to the Q&A box, those that haven't been answered.
It looks like Timothy has her hand up. Timothy, you'd like to unmute? Appears you may still be muted.
I see Timothy's hand was unraised.
Okay. Next on the list, we have Ravi Chandran. Let me go ahead and unmute you.
Hi. I have a couple of questions. So one is related to the reason for default. So I know that status code is in like Geneva requires the action code reporting, which happens on the current reporting cycle. But what about the reason for default code? That also needs to be done as per the current reporting cycle, or can be the historical data as long as the loan remains delinquent.
Hey, Matt, this is Christy. So for the default reason code, that is on the file. Trying to see which field number it is. That is field number 5. So you need to report the default reason code every month, and then up to 20 available action codes and dates per month.
Right. The question is, are we supposed to report the reason for default from prior months? For example, if a loan is delinquent for last 6 months, there could be a contact established 3 months back and borrower provided a reason for default. Are we supposed to use that particular reason for default in the current reporting? Or you're expecting a 015 or a 031 for the current reporting cycle because you're expecting a go forward reporting?
Which 2 codes did you say there? A 031 and a what?
015, which are the like contact and no contact codes.
Okay, so it would be whatever is the correct reason code for that month.
For that particular month. So you wouldn't require the data from previous month. It is similar to your action code.
No, the default reason code needs to be reported for the correct default reason code every month.
Okay, so it can be historical data.
You'd carry it forward, yeah.
All right. So for the
Well,
current
but if
reporting
it
cycle,
changes, you would need to report the accurate one.
Exactly.
So it's
correct.
not always the historic data.
No, that I understand. For the first reporting
Okay.
cycle, they could be like, let's assume we have 5,000 delinquent account, out of which there is only 1,000 accounts on which the current RFD is updated for this cycle. Remaining 4,000 accounts, the RFDs are from prior months, or there is a 15s or 31s to be reported. So you're expecting the prior months data to be reported on those 4,000 accounts, or you're expecting a 15 and 31 to be reported to kickstart the reporting.
It would be whatever the current one is for November reporting.
Okay. So if in
I
case
can't
we
tell you what code it is because I don't have your servicing system.
no,
It
I understand,
needs,
but
right.
right. But your expectation is like any loans which had a reason for default in the current reporting cycle, where we had a contact with the borrower or however the source we receive the data, you need that. And if in case it is a prior month's data, then it has to be defaulted to a 15 or 31 based on the contact, and we will not publish the prior month's reason for default. And from go forward basis, we will continue to carry forward the same RFD for the subsequent reporting. That's the expectation.
Ginnie Mae's expectation is to have the accurate default reason code that is provided on page 8, 9, or 10. I'm sorry, 9, 10, or 11 for each month.
I get it. We understand the
So
requirement.
Yeah.
But here for the first month, I'm asking, are we supposed to carry forward from the prior months, or should we just ignore the prior month's data and then report whatever is
if
the current month data?
it needs to be whatever the current month data is. If the prior month is the same as the current month, then that's fine. If it's different, it needs to be the actual correct code.
Okay.
Thank you,
Understood.
Christy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ravichandran.
Sorry, one more question. So you're emphasizing more towards the 031 RFD, like when it is like you don't know the reason for default from the customer or you're not able to contact the borrower, then you're supposed to do a 031. So when are we supposed to use 015 then? Because typically we do the 015 when borrower says I'm like he doesn't express the reason for default. That is when the servicer use 015. But as per the second bulletin that we received on the 031, it clearly says that it can be a situation where borrower doesn't give you the reason for default or you're not able to contact the borrower. So both are covered in the 031 itself. So what is the need for 015? Am I making sense?
Yes. Yeah. Christy, did you want to help speak to that or?
I mean, all I have is what's in the appendix. So Ginnie Mae
Yeah.
is expecting the correct code per what is in Appendix 622.
Exactly.
But
So we can follow up with this, Ravichandran, for you. But our read of the appendix, right? We're contractors. We did not write Appendix 622. Is that 015 and 031 are similar? But as long as you think it accurately reflects the situation for that reason code, that should be sufficient for reporting. So if you're not able to establish contact, you have the codes as defined in Appendix 622.
okay, thank you. And the last question is related to the forbearance term update. So same question. So if a forbearance was approved a couple of months back and that forbearance is still active, are we supposed to report the term of the forbearance for those, or it is only for the loans whichever was approved in the current cycle and for that only you need the term?
If you are reporting a forbearance action code, you will need the term
Okay.
every month.
Okay. So for example, if this month I report a forbearance, then I need to report the term. Okay, forbearance is a carry forward code, right? Okay, got it. That makes sense. Thank you. So historical
Sure.
data, the term shouldn't be updated. That's your take.
The forbearance information needs to be current each period.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, their hand raised here, we have Joanna. Joanna, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to confirm that when the guide or the appendix says alternative to foreclosure, that means all of our loss met options. If the loan is current, we would report on those, right? So if it's a repayment plan and the loan is current, we would still report the repayment plan.
If the action happened for one of the available action codes that is listed in Appendix 622 during the reporting period, Ginnie Mae is expecting to see that action code with the applicable action date.
If the loan is current, that you want all of the codes if the loan is current?
That would go back to when to report and when to stop.
Okay.
Yeah, based on that when to start criteria, if you're pursuing alternative foreclosure, you would report that. And then if there is an additional applicable PDS code to report, you'd be able to provide that at that time as well.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Joanna.
Can we jump to Doreena's question? Because I think this is important for the whole group. Doreen is asking in Q&A, am I understanding this correctly that we don't have to do the supplemental forbearance file report upload anymore? Can someone on the team take that, please?
Sure thing, Sylvia. So Dorina, for this one here, we encourage you to review Modernization Bulletin 54. And in that bulletin, it's going to specify that we're asking to continue reporting the supplemental forbearance file for a 6-month period in parallel with PDS. And the reason for this is to make sure there's no impact to that disclosure reporting. So right now, when we go live in December, we'd start with the PDS reporting. You continue to report that supplemental forbearance file for the next 6 months. At the 6-month mark, there'll be an additional communication. Supplemental forbearance file would stop, and you continue reporting PDS for each month going forwards. Does that help clarify, Sylvia?
Yes, I think Dorina had found it in Bulletin 54, but I just wanted to make sure everybody on the call was aware of that. Matt, do you want to maybe just take a couple of the questions from the Q&A box?
Yes, we still have some hands raised, so I'm trying to balance. We're getting lots of questions here. Yeah, in the Q&A box here, so Ginger, here you had asked about wanting a 42 reported on a current loan, asking we're going to change the definition of that code as it is currently delinquent, no action. Yes, that is correct. That is a planned update for Appendix 622 to be implemented in the future months. However, at this time, we realized that was not clearly written for 4042, which is why we went over those different options of how to report that bankruptcy scenario on slide 8 of this presentation. So if you're covered by one of those scenarios, you're all set and don't need to make any changes at this time. And then as soon as that next Appendix 622 is released, we communicate it to all the issuers and you'll have ample time to make any updates. Cover that. All right, Sylvia, it looks like you had started answering Jose's question around accessing the PDS reporting section. So the PDS module, the PA PDS module is part of My Ginnie Mae. Right now that menu item is hidden from issuer view on the website. If you were to log into My Ginnie Mae today, you would not see this menu item. However, it's scheduled for being released on November 29th, this Friday. That menu item would appear. If you have the same item, same access and permissions to view the RFS information, you'd also see the PDS menu item at that time. So that should be available on Friday for everyone in advance of starting reporting on 12/1.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
Is there, let's do a couple of hands.
All right. Next hand raised I see here is Kayla. Would you like to unmute yourself? Kayla, it looks like you're unmuted, but we don't hear you yet. Oh, Kayla, we hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
My question is for trial plans that are already in flight in November. So let's say we have a trial plan. It was approved in October, I would say August. The second payment out of the 3 due is in November. Do we report that because there's a payment due in November, although the approval was in a prior month? Or do we only report trials approved in the month of November for the first reporting?
Christy or Debbie, did you want to speak to that?
Do you happen to know which code that is, Kayla?
That would be code either 091 or 039. I think it's 091 because I think that one is month over month.
Okay, so we would actually just go right back to Appendix 622. So if the borrower has an approved for a trial payment plan and is making the required payments, then that's whenever you would report that.
Okay, so in that case, as long as they're making the payment in November for that approved plan, we would report it.
Correct.
Gotcha. Thank you guys so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kayla. Next with the handers, you have Melissa Rigby. Like to unmute yourself?
Yes, sorry about that. So my question is around the lossment, the current loans reporting due to pursuing alternatives to foreclosure, i.e. lossment. So if a loan was on a mod, right? So say we wanted to report a 038. The 038 is not a pulse code. So say we have the loan active in a in lossment for 2 or 3 months, right? While it goes through the process. We're going to continue to report that, but do we continue to report the 038 or do we report the 038 one time and then flip back to the 42 while it's current? And I asked this question.
Matt, you are sharing your screen.
Oh.
Don't forget that you're sharing. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Melissa. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was just asking the question because the 038 is not a pulse code. So if the loan's current and the status is the 038 and it's the status for more than 1 month, do we continue to report the 038 for more than the 1 month?
I'm looking for the 038 in the guide. That is recovery modification started without a partial claim.
Yeah, and I'm just using that as an example, right? Because it's not a pulse code.
Okay, so the definition of that says the borrower has been approved for a recovery modification without the use of a partial claim.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
Then the date would be date of the signed modification.
Right.
So you should report that one time if it's not a pulse code.
Right, but the loan may remain active. Right. So say the 038 becomes applicable on 11/26, loan's current. So for November, I'm going to report the loan's due for 12/1. but let's say on 12/1, we're going to report to you a 038.
Okay, for what
Um,
happened in November. Okay.
Right. So then, but that loss mitt still might be ongoing in December, right? Until they complete the mod and they roll the due dates and then close out.
And that would happen on a current loan?
What do you
I
mean?
mean, if you're doing a mod, isn't the loan delinquent? Or not always?
So I guess, all right. So when we're talking, well, yes, but in essence, if we've got a signed mod agreement, right? So if we got the signed mod doc back, you know, and say it's towards the end of the month in November, right? That might be ongoing through December to close everything out. So at what point, so when we report the 038 for the November, right, on 12/1 or 12/2 for this month, right? So we report the 038 and then the next cycle, are you expecting the reinstatement or just stop reporting? Or
Well, so it really depends, because if you have a signed mod, Ginnie Mae loans are not allowed to be modified while they are in a pool. So you would need to check with your investor reporting team to see at what point they're going to be buying that particular loan out of the current Ginnie Mae pool and then re-securitizing it with the modified terms into a different Ginnie Mae pool. So once you're buying the loan out of the pool, you're not going to report it, because that's part of when to stop reporting.
so then would it be safe to say that 9 times out of 10 we won't even be reporting the reinstatement codes?
It very possible.
And that goes back to the when to stop criteria as well. So anytime, look at that criteria first, and if one of those when to stop is satisfied, the subsequent codes don't need to be reported.
Correct. And as a quick reminder, Ginnie Mae is looking not for the actual status of the loan. Each month, Ginnie Mae is looking for the default reason code and whatever action codes and dates that happen during the month.
Thanks, Christy. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
All right, next with their hand raised here, I see Lana. Lana, if you'd like to unmute yourself. Lana, it looks like you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Lana, if you'd like to try using the chat function, type your, or the Q&A function, type in your question. We can answer that there as well. Next with their hand raised, it looks like Steve Strops. I'd like to unmute yourself. Looks like, Steve, you've just lowered your hand. So hopefully we answered your question there. So I'm not seeing any more hands raised on the attendee list. So we'll go back to the Q&A box and help answer some of these on the call as well.
Thank you, Matt.
Sure thing, Sylvia. So I'm seeing here from the 230 question here, if the loan is current but on forbearance, to report a 42 or a forbearance code. So for forbearance, that's the codes 006 or 009. Those are defined to be reported each month. So you'd use that forbearance code. That code 42 is really intended to be if there's nothing else to report that month. So in this case, you have a forbearance code. There would not be a need for that 42 code as well in that scenario. All right, next we see here, given that the November reporting period is most servicers' first reporting submission, if a loan's bankruptcy filing occurred in October, any prior reporting period does Ginnie Mae expect require we submit the applicable bankruptcy code for November 24 reporting? Okay, this is a key concept that will be helpful to clarify for all issuers and vendors on the call here. When we start reporting in December, using that November reporting period data, it's as if we just started reporting in November. You don't have to worry about bringing forward any old historic information. If that bankruptcy occurred earlier this year, we wouldn't need to see that bankruptcy code in that November reporting. But were any new activities or new codes to occur, you just start reporting from that point forward in time. So that way, I'm trying to make it as achievable as possible to start reporting in November. Hopefully that helps clarify that question. Okay, so Anita, you're asking about action code 068. This is a one-time code. It's report 042. There's no other applicable code for loss met or bankruptcy. Should go back to reporting the original 043 referral. Christy, do you have Appendix 622 open in front of you?
I do.
If you want to help speak to this one here, I just want to make sure we're giving the right answer for 068.
Right, so 068 says first public legal action required to initiate foreclosure was completed. So you would report the date the attorney files the first legal documentation required by the state to initiate foreclosure proceedings one time. So to me, Matt, and correct me if I'm wrong, you would report that if that happens, and then if there's no other action taken, you would report a 42 in future.
Understood. Thanks for clarifying, Christy. So Anita, hopefully that helps to answer your question there. And then I see this next anonymous question from 232, the difference between 015 or 031. So looking at those default reason codes here, 015 is defined as other, and the notes in Appendix 622 says to use that infrequently. And then 031 is the no contact code and can be used in case you have not been able to establish a reason for default. So based on what's in Appendix 622, the preference would be to use that 031 to denote that there's been no contact or no reason for default provided, whereas that 015, just the other, doesn't provide as much detail to Ginnie Mae. So hopefully that helps clarify the difference between those two default reason codes. All right, so this is back to first reporting cycle. The loan is active in bankruptcy but is current. Do you expect the code 42 to be open in episode, or the 42 does not apply because it is current? Okay, so this is referring to, you're going to start reporting in December, November reporting month. There's a loan in bankruptcy, but it is current. Ideally, Ginnie Mae would expect to see a 42 here, just a signal that there's something going on with that loan. However, we realize that issuers coded this differently based on what was currently written in Appendix 42. If you were to send that bankruptcy code again, or also not send a 42 code because that loan is current, in this scenario at this time, that would be acceptable. We're working to update Appendix 622 in the coming months and provide more clarification on how to report this at that time.
Matthew, why don't I just jump in for 2 minutes quickly? We do realize that we're hitting the top of the hour and we want to be respectful of the time that you've committed to this. So I think the team is going to be able to stay on for another 15 minutes or so to take any questions that we haven't got to. But I just want to remind those that do have to leave, quite understandably, to please reach out to our customer service desk at askjennymay@hud.gov if you have any questions, if you have to drop now. And again, if you could please submit your survey before you exit the call, we would really appreciate it. We do have some open questions. So what we'll do is, for those that are able to stay on the call, we'll stay on just a few minutes later, longer, so that we can address those. But for those that need to drop, we thank you for attending and wishing you a happy Thanksgiving. Alrighty, thanks, Matt, if you could pick up the questions.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sylvia. And again, appreciate everyone's time and active engagement with PDS throughout this process. So really appreciate all the feedback and look forward to working with everyone to make PDS successful. So I see a question here, top of the Q&A box from Max. Registering codes 053 and 061. Christy or Debbie, if you have the appendix open, could you help answer this?
Absolutely. So a 53 and 55. Oh, I'm sorry. I looked at 53 and 55. 53 and 61.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, 61. So an 053 is the borrower has been approved for a combination loan modification and partial claim that is not an FHA HAMP combination loan modification partial claim. So an 061 is the borrower has been approved for a recovery modification with use of a partial claim. So it would be one or the other.
Got it. So report one or the other of these two codes. So Max, if you have more questions, please put them in the Q&A box. We're happy to help. Okay, so Willie, you're asking here about a loan is in bankruptcy and delinquent. We keep reporting the bankruptcy code, but the moment the account becomes current, we'll have to report a code 42 and the account is no longer in bankruptcy status. So that is one of the scenarios we covered for reporting. So in the ideal reporting, and this will be clarified in the future Appendix 622, we report the bankruptcy code when the bankruptcy initially occurs, right? That initial bankruptcy was filed, report that date. In the subsequent months, report a 042 if there's no other activity on that loan. But what you're covering here, and Christy, please correct me, that this should be acceptable based on the guidance Ginny Mae provided on slide 8 of the training today.
Yes, I agree.
All right. Thank you, Christy. Okay, next we have Michael's question here around a moratorium code, action code 089. We'll just put someone added around natural disaster. Yes, so the idea of the one-time reporting, PDS, and this is also covered in the PDS FAQs, is the reporting is going to be event-based reporting. That is, when the event occurs, I'll report that specific event rather than sending a status code each month. There are a few codes, such as the forbearance codes, where we specify specifically in Appendix 622 to continue reporting that code each month. So the best guidance here for Appendix 622 is, unless specified for a given code, to report each month, to treat it as a specific event code and report it only one time. Hopefully that helps to clarify, Michael. All right. Additional question around the 42 code from Joanna here. There's nothing else reporting the loan. The loan is current and repayment plan over more than a month. Report the 012 and then the 042 and the loan is current only for when it's in bankruptcy. Christy, Debbie, are you following this question? Or Joanna, we can also follow up with you after this call to get some more information. I just want to make sure I'm giving you the correct answer.
On which one, Matt?
This is Joanna's question from 255.
That would be the part you had talked about with the 042 and the bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm. So we'll make sure to
I mean,
get...
do you want to go back to that bankruptcy slide?
Yeah, I can pull it back up.
I mean, I think that might be best, Matt.
Okay. Yeah. So for the bankruptcy option here, right, if the loan is current and in bankruptcy, it should be reported. You'd report the bankruptcy code when it occurs. If that loan remains current, right, the preference from Ginnie Mae is to report that 042 no action code each month. But Ginnie Mae realizes that was not clear in Appendix 622. So you have the option of also reporting a bankruptcy code each month the loan is in bankruptcy. So we understand some issuers have coded their solution this way. That will work. Or also, if the loan remains current, you can not necessarily report a 42 code for those following months, and then we'll provide additional direction in an updated Appendix 622 later on. So hopefully that helps to clarify. We'll also work to get this slide posted as well for the training materials. And if you have any other questions, please reach out to us at Ask Ginnie Mae mailbox, and we're happy to help. Yep, Anita, you're asking about there's no other applicable action to go back to the 42. Yep, that's correct. So if the loan or the when to start criteria needs to be reported for PDS, and it hasn't met any of the PDS when to stop criteria, you'd use that 042 code each month to signify that this loan is still being reported for PDS. So that is correct.
And Matt,
Christy?
but yeah, before you move on, I think Joanna just put a follow-up in the last question at 303. But before
okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Not asking about bankruptcy. I'm asking if the loan is current as an alternative for foreclosure. The first month and then the 42 are current, and then the alternative to foreclosure. I'm just taking a look at Appendix 622 to make sure I'm giving you the correct answer. Yeah. It says to include loans in forbearance are not treated as delinquent for credit or servicing purposes. And then we're working to also clarify that this would be for bankruptcy. So Joanna, let me take that question and check in with our team here around the alternatives to foreclosure and come back to you with a definitive answer. I just don't want to say the wrong thing on the call. But we'll double check and get you an answer via email shortly on that. Jonathan, you're asking for an updated link to the training. Let me go ahead and paste that into the chat. Make sure this is working for everyone. Yep, that is the current. So this will be in the chat to everyone. All right, that chat link should be available, and we'll also put it in the Q&A box. Yeah, if that link is not working for anyone, please just let us know. We'll make sure to get you an updated link. Going to Melissa's question from 3 o'clock here. Did I hear correctly that 42 is not required to report as an opening status when another code is more applicable in the first month of delinquency? Reporting a loan for the first time is active in bankruptcy. Report the bankruptcy code. Christy, Debbie, can you confirm?
Yes, I believe that is correct, because Ginnie Mae is looking for the current code. So if you have an action code that fits one of the other action codes, you don't necessarily have to report a 42 if you've got a different code. Right, Matt?
Exactly. If you've got a more detailed code, right? Because the idea for Ginnie Mae and this whole data collection is to get more detailed information on those defaulted loans. So if there's another code that you have that is more applicable, please report that code. And then that 42 is really just used when there's nothing else to report. If you report a 42 with another code, again, it's not going to trigger any exceptions. So it shouldn't be a cause for concern there. But know that if you do have another code that provides more information on the status of that loan, to please report it. Thanks, Christy.
And Melissa, does that, oh, Matt, Melissa put one more question in the chat.
If the first time is reporting is 42 required to be reported first, I'm just confirming this in Appendix 622.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, because Christy, this one in 622, we say this code must report in the first reporting month if the loan becomes delinquent. Also report this code if the loan continues to be delinquent, there's no other action to report. So I wouldn't.
Okay, then it would be the first month.
Yeah, based
yes.
on that, yeah, I would report that 042. You are correct. Yes. So the guidance here, again, we were not the creators of Appendix 622, is to follow what's exactly written in the December 1st version. And then any future updates will give you ample time to make those changes at that point. So thank you for pointing that out. Jonathan, you're asking about bankruptcy codes are not supposed to be repeated for as long as the bankruptcy is active. Yes, that would be correct. Essentially, the codes should not repeat unless they're specified in Appendix 622 to be repeating codes. However, with the guidance we have up here on slide 8, Ginnie Mae has heard from some issuers that have coded their solution to report the bankruptcy code each month. And that's okay. Again, it's not going to trigger any exceptions if you report it multiple times, but going forwards, once a new Appendix 622 is sent out and there's time to implement those changes, it would be, the ideal state would be to report that bankruptcy code only when it occurs. Yep, so Joanna, I see your follow-up here around alternative foreclosure. So I've got a note here to reach out to our team to confirm that, and we'll follow up with an email with those details for you. So thank you for pointing that out. I'll make sure to get that clarified. Yep, so Melissa, I see your follow-up as well. Based on what's in Appendix 622, what we just looked at, it does say that first month that it's delinquent to use that 042 code. So we encourage you to report that as well. But again, there's no exceptions based on the reporting code. So you just report that 011, you wouldn't see a PDS exception generated.
And also, Melissa, so if you have a code 42 and something else happens for the first month, I mean, you're welcome to report that code also. Do you agree, Matt?
Absolutely. Yep. I fully agree, Christy. Jenna, you're asking about the presentation not matching up. Yes, you are correct. The presentation file that was posted to the Ginnie Mae website did not have this slide in it. We're working with our knowledge management team at Ginnie Mae to get the slide updated and reposted in the presentation, and that should be completed shortly. So this was a late addition to the presentation to help answer some of the questions and feedback we received from issuers. We'll make sure that everyone gets this information as well.
And Matt, it looks like we can go back to the phone line.
Yep, Ravichandran, I see you have a question. So yes, let me go ahead and unmute you.
Perfect.
Hi, Matt. Thank you. So the follow-up question related to the forbearance reporting. So I think Black Knight, the ICE mortgage, ICE has developed the system in such a way that only the current month forbearance approvals are captured in the reporting process. So anything which is approved in the previous months, but it is still active as per your guidance, you're saying we need to report, but as per Jenny guidance or as per the earlier discussions or with Black Knight, it was advised that any loans which is approved in the current cycle only will get reported, and subsequently we will carry forward the same reporting unless the forbearance is active on those accounts. So now I see a conflict over this. So could you please reconfirm what is really expected?
Matt, do we want to take that one offline and then
Yeah,
let them know?
Ravishan, I just want to make sure we're getting you the correct information here. So just help me. I just want to make sure I'm writing this down correctly. So you're asking about a question of when specifically to report, or what's the conflict that you said you're seeing?
So as per our earlier discussions, it was advised that if a forbearance was approved or a trial modifications is approved, like in prior months, let's say in September 2024, but the trial modification is still active in the current cycle, but we are not supposed to report those accounts because the trial modification was approved prior to November. The expectation was if in case a forbearance was approved in November or a trial modification was approved in November, those should get picked up in the reporting and continue to report in the subsequent months to indicate that it is in forbearance or it is in trial payment plan. But
Yes.
as per my question on the chat, I asked the same question and you given a feedback stating that no, we need to report even if the forbearance or a trial modification was approved in the previous cycles, previous month. So that is the conflict I was seeing.
Okay, so trial mods, which code is that? Because forbearance is in 009 and in 006.
Yeah, 06, 09 and 39. I think. Sorry, 91. 91 is the code.
91. Okay, so 91 is a borrower has been approved for a trial repayment plan and is making the required payments. So they could have a trial modification and be in forbearance?
No. I'm saying in both the cases, the expectation is anything which is approved in November cycles has to be reported to Jenny May. That is our that was our understanding, and ICE Mortgage also implemented the default reporting system in such a fashion. But now if in case we are saying that the old loans also needs to be picked up in the reporting process, then it requires a change. Am I making sense?
Oh, so like so right now, if your 009 is being reported on like your COVID forbearance file, that file needs to continue for 6 months.
No.
But
What
if
I'm
they're in forbearance, it needs to be reported and continue to be reported every month on the COVID
irrespective of
forbearance file and the PDS file.
okay, so PDS, unlike your other status codes where you're focusing on the current month, like your bankruptcy also, you're saying if a bankruptcy is approved in the November only, we need to pick up those in the reporting. So we shouldn't consider if there was a bankruptcy approved in September or August or prior to that. But for forbearance, you're saying irrespective of the approval, if it is active in the system, just continue to report. That is what the guidance is.
Yes, for forbearance, yes. Forbearance needs to be reported every month with the term. As long as it's in that forbearance.
Okay,
Action.
irrespective of the approval date. Yeah, irrespective of the approval date, whether it is approved 2 months back or 5 months back, whatever period it is approved, it is active in the system today, report it.
Right.
Exactly.
Because the forbearance file, the old supplemental forbearance file, if you've been reporting that, that needs to continue for 6 months, and then that same information should also be reported in the PDS file. So that those should kind of go, in line.
Yep.
Does that help?
Yeah. It answers the question, but maybe there were some disconnect in earlier conversations because of which there is some conflict in the reporting process, which we need to quickly sort it out with Black Knight.
Understood. And with that, we'd always refer you back to the when to start and not when to stop direction. So right, if a loan's in forbearance, we'd expect it to be reported. So when that forbearance started a few months ago, you're showing a report in November. If it's still in forbearance, it would still apply for PDS. We'd expect to see that reported this coming month as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great question.
Yep, I think, Sylvia, we're at time here.
Yeah,
Is that
I
correct?
think we're at time. And also, if you don't mind just quickly posting the link again for people that lost connection. Christy, is there a possibility of reaching out to Johanna Chancellor directly after the call?
Yes, I took down her name and we're going to work to get an answer on that.
So
and follow up with her.
we'll get back to you. So expect that. And I'd just like to again mention that please go ahead.
Sylvia, it does look like we have one more hand raised.
Oh, okay.
And I don't recall if we've heard from Jonathan, so I would like to see if he has a quick question.
Yeah, Jonathan, you'd like to unmute yourself.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So this kind of piggybacks off of the last comment. So this is being viewed as an event-based reporting as opposed to a status-based reporting, which means that, because one of the comments that you made was that you want to see a fewer amount of 42s because that would indicate there's no real action taking place. But if we're looking at this as an event-based reporting, if we've got an active bankruptcy or an active foreclosure, which is a one-time reporting code that we report, let's say we're 6 months down the line from our reporting going active. If we report that a bankruptcy or a foreclosure took place, it was initiated within the month that it was activated, and then we fall back to reporting a 42 for the duration of that bankruptcy or that foreclosure, it looks as if no activity is taking place on those loans, even though they are active in bankruptcy or foreclosure. So I think the distinction between going back to a 42 when we're referring to bankruptcy or foreclosure, as opposed to what you were just talking about with an 09 forbearance remaining in our reporting for the life of that activity is confusing to us. So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding that correctly. For bankruptcy and foreclosure and for some of the other loss mid codes, we are only to report that code to you within the month that it actually was approved or activated. And then we will fall back to reporting that loan as a 42, even though those processes are ongoing, because it's event-based as opposed to status-based.
Understood, Jonathan. So yeah, that's the guidance right now currently in Appendix 622. We do know that some issuers are reporting that bankruptcy code each month on the solution. With the guidance we have up on the screen, that's also acceptable to Ginnie Mae.
Right, but that's going to change, right? Like we're going to go back, like the guidance is going to be changed to say that the bankruptcy should only be reported in the one time, or it's going to be changed to say you can continue to report it.
That's a good question. We'll take back to Ginnie Mae.
And I think the same. I think the same applies to when the loan becomes current. If we're going to be required to report that loan because the bankruptcy is active, even though the loan is current, when we're reporting that to you, and I understand the definition of code 42 is going to be updated, but from a servicer standpoint, to try and relay through our PDS reporting that there is a reason this current loan is being reported, the most applicable reporting code, in our opinion, would definitely be that bankruptcy. So I think that's where the confusion comes in, and most default reporting teams are probably also reporting to other the GSEs and investors, and they're on the opposite end of this kind of direction. Absolutely. So I think that again is where the confusion is coming in. So I just wanted to make sure that I understood properly that it's just that it's a one-time reporting code, even though a bankruptcy was reported to you 3 or 6 months ago or a year ago. If that bankruptcy lasts for a year and we're reporting a 42 to you for 12 straight months, it's still being bucketed as a bankruptcy loan because we have not reported that one-time bankruptcy clearance code 76. It just looks strange that you'll have a duration of code 42 without the applicable code for the life of whatever action is actually taking place.
Jonathan, yeah, thank you for the feedback here. I wrote down kind of your notes here. We're going to share this with Ginnie Mae as well. And Ginnie Mae is the one who's ultimately the one updating Appendix 622.
Right, and we will abide by direction. Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're following the same guidance you have. So we're on the same page, but appreciate you sharing that.
Okay.
Yes, great conversation, Jonathan. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, and to the team for answering all those questions. Really appreciate it. Again, we will repost the presentation with the new updated slide 8. But in the meantime, the deck without the updated slide 8 is available right now. Just to mention that if you want to subscribe to the training announcements, then you'll be able to receive any notifications about upcoming training. So again, we want to thank you for your time today, and sorry we ran a little bit over, but it was important to get all the questions answered. So we hope you found the training informative, and if you can, please submit your survey by pressing the submit button. And again, have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and thank you for joining. Thank you.